Welcome everyone to the part 3 of the tutorial where we are trying to develop a chatbot with the help of LangChain and Drag, right? So in the previous tutorial, what we have covered? We have covered that how we can load the document. We have covered like how we can split the document, right? So if you look at the diagram here, we have load the document, which is on the left side, right? Which you can see here, right? And we have divide the document into the chunks, which you can see here, right? Which I am highlighting. Now the next step is whatever the chunks we have divided in the previous step, we have to load them into the vector database, right? So we have to load them into the vector database and into the embeddings, right? So I have told you, right, whatever the chunks you have divided, it will go through the embedding algorithms, and then the summary of the each chunk that will be stored into the vector database. So right now we are planning to do the same. So whatever the chunks we have, those embeddings which you can see here, right, which is in the form of numbers, right, that we are planning to store into the vector database. And we have already covered in the first tutorial like what is the benefit to convert these things into the embeddings and then storing into the vector database. So if you have not seen that video, please go and watch that. It will be really helpful for you. Now let's do the coding part of it. So now we are going the step 3 here, which is, see, it is giving me also a suggestion. This is the capabilities of cursor. There are more capabilities I will cover later on, but what we are doing is we are creating the vector database. So how we can do the creation of vector database is def create vector database, which will take the chunks. Now what are the chunks? Chunks that we have divided into the step 2, right? So if you have seen, these are the chunks, right? The left side, we have divided the chunks already, right? Now we are actually loading into the vector database for the embedding. So what we are doing is we are initializing the OpenAI embeddings, right? There are many embeddings algorithm that you can use. Right now I am using the OpenAI embeddings, right? So the purpose of this tutorial is not going through all of the embeddings algorithm, but if you want to deep dive into the algorithms, what algorithms that you can use for the embeddings and all, please you can go for the official documentation, or I will cover those things in the separate detailed video where I will cover the topics in greater details one by one, like what is open embeddings, what is recursive character text. But for the high level of this tutorial, you can simply assume like as I told you like in the previous tutorial, like this is the embedding algorithm, right? So one of the embedding algorithm is like we can use the OpenAI embeddings, right? So this is by default provided by the OpenAI. So if you see OpenAI embeddings algorithm, you can just use this. Okay, so now once we have the embeddings, what we can do is we have to initialize the vector store, right? So in this case we can use a files database, right? I'm not using like a Chroma one. So there are multiple vector database that are available in market. So if you go to and type on the Chroma like what is vector database, right? So you will see that there are many vector database available. So you can type of vector databases or vector database provider. So you can see the Chroma is the one, Pinecone is very popular database, and we are using FIRES, so it is Facebook AI similarity search, right? So that is what we are using. So this is a FIRES database, right? So this database is capable of storing the embeddings into the system, right? And this is very useful, okay? That we have already seen that, okay, what is the use of the vector database. So let's go and let's create the vector database. So what we are doing is we are saying the files, and then we are saying the from document, and then we are providing the document, right, which is the chunks and the embeddings, right? So we need to provide like what kind of a embedding algorithm we are using and what is the required chunks that we want to create the embeddings for, right? So here you will create the vector store for it. So now let's print this. Like first of all, let's return it, and then let's print it also, so that we can see actually what is the vector store, what is the result of vector store. For the simplicity, I'm just removing this print of chunks, right? And I'm just calling vector store and the create vector store. So I can remove the print statement from here, and I can just simply print vector store here, right? Because we want to see like what is the output of the vector store. But what will be the output of the vector store is these embeddings like 0.84, 0.75, 0.64, and these are also stored into the vector database with this particular function, which is creating the vector database here. And we are asking the FIRES database to load those chunks in with this embedding algorithm into your database, right? So this particular function will do the embedding and is storing the embeddings to the vector database. So I hope it is clear. So this is nothing new. We have already covered, like if you have the chunks, then you have to convert the chunks into the vector embeddings with the help of the embedding algorithm, and those embeddings you need to store into the vector database. And one of the vector database that we are using is Facebook AI Similarity Search. So I hope it is clear, right? Now this is the time to launch this particular function. So what I am going to do is I am going to say Python chat.py, okay, and let's hit enter. Okay, so here you can see that OpenAI embedding, which we are using, like it is not defined because we have not imported this. So let's try to import this OpenAI embedding now. Okay, so what we will do is from LangChain embeddings import OpenAI embeddings, and for the same thing I have not imported the files database. So for the files database also we will do from LangChain vector stores import files. As I already told you, like you don't have to be very much expert in LangChain. So in this tutorial, whatever I am covering, it is a very good starting point to start with the LangChain only. Okay, so it means that like if you are very new to the LangChain, I have already told like LangChain is just a just a tool, a framework which automate all the process that we are using, right? So these are just libraries that LangChain is provide, like the PyPDF loader, recursive character text splitter. So you don't have to learn everything, like you don't have to go through all the functions that LangChain has. It has many functions, right? But if you follow this tutorial, whatever the function I am using here, it is very good place to start with. Okay, and after that you can deep dive into the LangChain stuff, what other function they are providing, and so given that we have imported the the OpenAI embedding and the files, so let's clear this and let's try to run this Python chat.py. So what this will do, this will run my program. So let's see. Okay, it is still giving me that it is not defined, the OpenAI embedding. So let's see if I have saved it or not. I think I have not saved it. So let's try now. Okay, this is fine, right? So this is now this error has been not there. So what is the new error? It is saying that you have not provided open API key. So this is really interesting, right? So what is actually happening, right? So this OpenAI embedding is trying to use my OpenAI key, which is not configured right now. If you see, I don't have, I didn't configure the Open API key. So what I have to do is I have to create the env file, and I have to just create my OpenAI API key. So what you have to do to create it, you have to go to the website which is called platform.openai, go to it, right, and just go to the API references or up your profile, and here you will see a section called API keys. So click on the API keys. You can see that there are many API keys I have already created. Maybe if you are logged into the first time to platform.openai.com, you don't have any kind of a key here. So what you have to do is you have to create a new secret key here and make sure like you have some $5 or some dollars in your billing account, right, and create the API key from here. Now you can name this API key is anything. Suppose I can provide a chatbot API key, and then I can provide any project, so maybe a default project, and then I can create a secret key. Once I create a secret key, you will have this OpenAI key, right? This is the key that is used to connect with this OpenAI platform, right? Because OpenAI is providing the way which we can talk to the models, right? So OpenAI has already some trained models. So if you log in and if you search for like OpenAI models, you will see like there are many models that OpenAI providing, right? So they are providing GPT-4 Omni, they are providing GPT-4o, O1 and everything, right? So when we were talking about, okay, the answer is coming from the LLM, the large language model. So what do we mean by model is there are some, there are some companies which are providing those models, right? And OpenAI is one of the companies which are providing large language model. There are many companies which are providing large language models. The one of this is OpenAI, another one is the Gemini also. So if you go and say, okay, Gemini models, so you will see that, okay, there are Gemini models also. So you can look for the Gemini models, right? Just Gemini 2.0 and all. So you can go through all those models, like what are in the market. But for now, just consider this OpenAI platform, which is providing the OpenAI models, which is GPT-4o, GPT-4 mini, and etc. Right? So once you have created the your keys, you can just simply copy it. So once you copy it, go back to the VS Code. Now here there are two ways that you can provide your keys here. Either you can provide inside the OpenAI embedding class itself, which is providing like API key. So if I type the API key, I can provide directly here, right, like this. Okay, and or I can provide in the .env file. So for what I have to do is I have to create a .env file, and then I have to provide my OpenAI key. So this, right, so I paste my OpenAI key. So there are two ways. First, you can hard code it here, which is not practiced, so I will not do that. Or you can create the .env file at the root of your project and type the OpenAI underscore API underscore key. Make sure that whatever you are typing as a variable name, it should be that same only, because by default OpenAI will search, LangChain will search the OpenAI API key under your .env folder. I hope it is clear. Now let's go here. To load this env file, we have to use the load .env function. So we will do that. Okay, so from .env import load.env and load.env. So this is pretty a simple Python thing, right? So what we are doing is we are loading this .env file into the environment, right? So once we do that, what we need to do is we need to run this again and see like if it's working. So I will clear this and then I will run it. Right, so it is doing something now. So let's see. Yeah, so if you see that now it has created something into the vector stores, right? It is giving you an address that I have stored something into the files database, and the address of that entry is this, right? So it means that my embeddings are stored, my embeddings are stored successfully, right? So now we have done this create vector database, we have split the document, we have loaded the document. So now the next thing is like we ask some question, right? And with the help of this vector store, then the LLM should able to answer my question, right? So let's see this in next tutorial, and let's deep dive into what conversational chain is and what are the things. So there will be an interesting section in the next tutorial.